Everybody, this is Miriam. How you guys doing tonight? Hopefully we're live on YouTube. We'll get some people going here. I'm Miriam. Thank you for joining me today. And we have Jim from the Soul of the Unexplained podcast. Welcome, Jim. How you doing?
Doing awesome. Thanks so much for having me on today. I'm excited to talk about today's subject matter.
Oh, yes, of course. So hopefully we are live. So I get some people in here. I didn't get the notification that we're live yet.
Ah,
Let's see.
is there anybody out there?
Well, it says that I'm live, so I guess I'll just continue, hopefully.
Alrighty, let's dive into this.
All right, so what is the Montauk Project? Well, I'll tell you. So this is a little bit of an article that I got from Haunted Locations and Spooky History, Long Island's East End. So obviously it's from Montauk, New York. What's this? So Montauk Iconic Lighthouse, that's the highlights, commissioned in 1796, is known for its ghostly legends. Numerous shipwrecks and storms have contributed to tales of lighthouse keepers' spirits and voices echoing from the tower. Nearby, Camp Hero is steeped in conspiracy theories of government experiments, adding another layer of intrigue. So a lot of crazy stuff is going on in Montauk, New York. Hi, Linda.
If you didn't think that New York was weird before this, then buckle up because it's going to get really weird.
Oh, jeez. So it's not just Montauk, it's other places too, apparently, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Well, you've got in upstate New York, which is where I'm from, just outside of New York City in the Hudson Valley. Of course, they had a famous UFO flap that occurred back in the 70s and 80s and still happens today. There's some strange phenomena, particularly pertaining to the UAP phenomenon that's there just about probably about an hour and a half outside of New York City to the northwest of it. So, yeah, cool
Wow.
stuff.
Okay. So the spooky phenomenon in Montauk, visitors and locals to the Camp Hero often report strange lights, unexplained sounds, and glimpses of ghostly apparitions, making it an unforgettable experience for the brave. Makes me want to go. Okay. Let's go.
Right? Let's go. I'm in.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm there.
I mean, it's a like a forest or something, national forest they turned it into, Camp Hero.
Yep. Yeah, they've turned it. I don't recall specifically when it happened, but they did turn Camp Hero into a New York State park, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yeah.
from what I understand, it's a real nice place to go visit.
Oh, that sounds nice. So I'll go ahead and screen share an article that I did research on about Montauk. Like, what is Montauk exactly? So it's based off of what the Duffer Brothers from Stranger Things was interested in. Originally, they were going to name the Hawkins town Montauk, but they
Montauk,
changed
yeah.
it to Hawkins, of course. So let me screen share the article.
And for the interest of full transparency here, I am one of the biggest Stranger Things fans you've ever seen. So
Awesome.
Before I even knew the Duffer Brothers, purposely kind of fashioned it after they used the Montauk Project legend for some of their inspiration for Stranger Things. As I was watching Stranger Things, that was like one of the first thoughts that crossed my mind was, "Oh my gosh, this is an awful lot like the Montauk Project." So that was
Yeah.
cool to find out that it was that was deliberate on the part of the Duffer Brothers, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, I just noticed that a few days ago that it was based off of the Montauk Project. Like, whoa, I gotta talk about this. Like, especially
Right?
since Stranger Things is coming out, the final series. Apparently, the Duffer Brothers are going to be doing another spin-off once the series ends for a whole new cast. So we'll
Yep.
see about that.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, back to Montauk. So the Montauk base at the eastern end of Long Island and northeast of the USA has been known for years as not only a military base, but also as the center of mysterious and strange events. This base, also known as Camp Hero, has become the focus of many speculations from paranormal activity to time travel experiments with its radar tower and its underground facilities. So I guess that creepy looking tower has something to do with weird stuff. Who
Well,
knows?
that big radar array that you see there in the background is what they
Mm-hmm.
call a SAGE radar, SAGE, and I should know what that stands for, but I know that it was used uh, post World War II, clear up until I believe the 1970s, and then of course the base I think was officially decommissioned uh, early 80s, 1980, 1981 or thereabouts.
Yeah.
But I believe that some of these stories pertaining to the alleged experiments that took place there, the psychic experiments that took place at Montauk, they did use the that radar array to beam out frequencies where they weren't just simply running tests on subjects that were there in the base, but also allegedly the local community there on Montauk Point, there
Mm.
on Long Island. So yeah,
So they were
kind of
experimenting.
trippy. Yeah,
So they were experimenting on locals as well, probably.
that's what the allegations were. Yeah, yep,
Mm. Interesting.
yep.
So it is claimed that the base, which was suddenly closed in 1983, that's what according to this
83. Yeah,
article,
there we go.
contained.
83. I was close. 81, 83.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, good guess, lucky guess. It contained much more than ordinary military facility. Allegedly, the secret experiment carried out here were carried out on both humans and animals, and as a result of these experiments, mind-blowing events occurred. Montauk Base, where facts and legends were intertwined, still contains many unsolved mysteries. Seems like an interesting place.
Yeah,
Camp.
it really is. And I was born and raised in upstate New York in a an area that's probably about 2.5, maybe 3 hours outside of the greater New York City area. Um, and my family didn't, even though my dad's side of the family came from Brooklyn, uh, we didn't really go into New York City very often if we could help it, because
Yeah.
traffic was always a nightmare to deal with.
Oh,
And so I've never personally even been down on Long Island. So it's kind of it's odd that I've never actually been there. But I've obviously I've seen lots of pictures, and I know a lot of people that came from that area, and they all know about the legends and the history, the storyline for Montauk and all the freaky stuff that happened there. And
yeah.
just real quickly, I want to say hello to Linda Simpson, and I see Barb is there, Barb Morris. So big
I
shout
be
out to
more.
my yeah, got to say hi to them. You'll forgive me, I don't wear my glasses as often as I should, so I sometimes got to put them on to read what's going on in the chat there. But but yeah, it's the thing that really drew me into Montauk before we start talking, I guess, about what some of the stuff is that we're going to dabble in here with the
Mhm.
experiments that were going on there and how that ties into Stranger Things, was there's a bit of a backstory to how the Montauk Project allegedly ties into another conspiracy theory and alleged well-known story that took place in the 1940s called the Philadelphia experiment.
Mhm.
And some people also call it Project Rainbow, which is where there was, and of course they, in the night, and I think like 1984, there was a sci-fi movie made about the Philadelphia experiment that kind of loosely follows the legend of what happened. But for those that don't know, the Philadelphia experiment happened allegedly in October of 1943 at the Philadelphia shipyard with a U.S. Naval ship called the USS Eldridge. And so what they were trying to do was do these. They were conducting an experiment, and of course, 1943 is smack dab in the middle of World War II for the
Yep.
United States, right? So they're trying to test Einstein's unified field theory, which basically uh, it deals a lot with the electromagnetism and gravity and all kinds of other cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so apparently they created this intensely powerful magnetic field around the USS Eldridge as it was sitting in Philadelphia's harbor. And after a short while, the ship flat out disappeared. What they were trying to do initially was to make the ship invisible to enemy radar. Um, so they were thinking that, with a if you generate your own powerful magnetic field, then maybe you could, according to Einstein's theory, you could make the ship invisible to radar. Okay, so they do this experiment, and the ship completely, according to the story, completely disappears, like vanishes from sight. Like there's like this. I think there was like a strange green colored type mist that appeared, and the ship just full on, disappeared from view.
Yeah.
And apparently, the ship then teleports several hundred miles to Norfolk, Virginia, which of course is a big naval port for the United States. And the ship is allegedly seen in Norfolk, Virginia, off the coast of Norfolk. And then shortly thereafter, the ship reappears back in Philadelphia Harbor, and this is where it really goes down the strange and unusual rabbit hole. So when the USS Eldridge reappears in Philadelphia Harbor, the crew that was on the ship are all in this really state of disarray, you could say, to put it lightly.
Mm-hmm.
There were reports that some of the crew members on the Eldridge had been fused into the bulkheads of the ship, like fused through solid metal. Like half of their body would be on the top deck, and then their
Oh, wow.
torso, the lower part of their torso, would be on the deck below. Like they had phased, been caught phasing halfway through a solid object kind of type thing.
Wow.
And that some of the crew had suffered these second and third degree burns. Some of the crew members had died. Uh, Other crew members were just freaking out, losing their mind, really disoriented. And so the rumor goes that the Navy tried to hush it up and keep it quiet, silence everybody. They swore everybody to secrecy. Some of the crew members obviously died from their injuries, particularly the ones that presumably would have been fused into the deck of the ship and all that.
That's horrible.
Um, so the the story kind of takes a weird left turn, as if this wasn't bizarre enough, right? So the left turn that the story takes at this point is that apparently the when the Eldridge teleported to Norfolk, that it also happened to go forward in time to the year 1983 or 1984 or something like
Oh,
that.
wow. Wow.
And so that's going to tie in to the Montauk Project, because the person that starts talking about and writes these books about the Montauk Project says that the experiments that were then begun on the Montauk Project in the 1970s and into the 80s was basically the continuation or the reestablishment of this Project Rainbow, or the Philadelphia experiment. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, the United States Navy, the Office of Naval Research, and I think the ONI, the Office of Naval Intelligence, has gone on record saying that this is all just a bunch of hooey and nonsense. The USS Eldridge, you can view the ship logs. It was never engaging in an experiment like that. There's no record, as far as we can tell. There's been no successful FOIAs that have been submitted where there's any indication that crew members went missing or that crew members on the ship died during any kind of an experiment. So, of course, you know, if you want to believe that the Philadelphia experiment actually happened, then of course you would say, well, naturally the government's going to say it was nonsense. I mean, we see
Mm-hmm.
that happening right now with the UAP issue, right?
Yep.
So, but I do tend to side on I come down on the side that I think it's a great story, but
Mm-hmm.
that's all that it is. However, there are some things, because as we hear, there's always a modicum of truth in every myth and every legend, right?
Yep.
So the thing we have to look back, and why the Philadelphia experiment, why I think it matters, at least the story of it, is look at what the technology is that's being tested today. The
Yep.
we now have the technology, and we you can go
Look
on
what's going
YouTube.
on at Area 51 and other places too.
Exactly. So there's a lot of belief that Area 51 is the and it's I guess in some ways it's been acknowledged Area 51 is a place where they tested experimental aircraft, experimental weapon systems, cutting edge technology, stuff that right off the pages of science fiction and comic books, basically.
Yeah.
And but there's the U.S. has been conducting experiments in how to uh, enact invisibility and cloaking, as what we would
Yep.
call it today. There's also been experiments run by running really strong magnetic fields to see what kind of impact it has on the immediate environment of the ship. Does it make it invisible to radar? Does it enact stealth and things like that? So there's little shreds of details that come out of this Philadelphia experiment story that do have some basis in reality, at least as far as the science that allegedly they were trying to test in 1943. They are
Mm-hmm.
still trying to bring to fruition in 2025, and I think that's really cool. But yeah, that's the backstory of what leads us into the freaky and creepy part of Montauk. So hope
Yeah.
that made sense.
I know what Kat said. What about their families? How they explain the no deaths if it never happened? Like, well,
Exactly
what
is
about the
in it
locals that in Virginia that saw the ship?
right
Like, how do you explain that? Like, oh
exactly
yeah, that never happened. How do you explain
precise
that?
precisely. Now granted, this was back in 1943, so it predates even Roswell. And
Mm-hmm.
to draw a comparison, all of the original witnesses that were alive during the time of the Roswell crash, they've all passed away. Every one of them has passed. They're all gone. And so with the Philadelphia experiment allegedly having taken place, 4 years prior to Roswell,
Yeah.
then it's not too hard to figure out that if in fact there was anybody that was still alive, the odds are pretty slim that they would be. But to answer your question, Kat, you're absolutely right. There's no, at least not that I'm aware of. There's never been anybody who's come forward from the family members of these supposed crew members that were so deeply affected and/or killed as a result of this experiment, the Philadelphia experiment.
I'm just wondering, they could have been threatened or shut up, just told to shut up, or who knows?
Yeah,
That's
could
horrible.
could 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 be for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So back to Camp Hero. It's now been converted, as we know, into a protected park to open to visitors. While the park, which is located in the area of approximately 3 square kilometers, is known for its various natural beauties and historical structures,
Hmm.
there are underground entrance gates that are closed at various points in this area. It is thought that the experiments carried out in the Montauk project were reportedly carried out in these underground tunnels. I'm just wondering, are they still doing that? Is that still a thing? Or are they just, who knows?
Well, there was um, to bring it into the Montauk project right now. There was a book that was written by a gentleman by the name of Preston Nichols, and I believe the book is called Montauk Experiments in Time.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually bought this book and read it because in the late '90s and early 2000s, I was really curious after I first heard about the legend of the Montauk project, especially when I found out that it tied into the Philadelphia experiment. Because think back to the late '90s, early 2000s, the internet is still fairly it's still in its infancy compared to what we
Internet
have now.
dial up,
Obviously,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. We had dial-up. I America Online. Go and mix
I
yourself a
remember
cup of
that.
coffee, and oh hey, I'm connected, yay! So yeah, it's back then we didn't have quite the access to resources to truly fact check and find things out. So back in the 1990s, I really thought there was a good possibility that the Philadelphia experiment really happened. Um, so when I found out that the Montauk project was alleged to be the continuation of the Philadelphia experiment or Project Rainbow, then I was like, oh my gosh! And knowing that it happened in my home state of New York, I was like, oh yeah, I gotta read about this. So this book, the Montauk Project: Experiments in Time, written by Preston Nichols and I think another guy, Peter
Yeah, it's in the
Moon.
article. It's somebody named Moon. The last
Peter
name Moon.
Peter Moon, and
Yep.
that's a pseudonym, by the way. That's not his real name, but that's beside the point. Anyhow, so I read the book, and the book just it's just extraordinary. It's a really fascinating read, and it starts to detail how they began running these experiments by beaming these frequencies out into the immediate community of where the base was, Camp Hero,
Yep.
to see if they could. I don't know if mind control is the right word, but trying to influence people's mood, okay, and personality. Like they figured out that there were certain frequencies that they could beam into the community that would make people, lose their patience or kind of, be cranky. And I mean, let's think about this, folks. Who the hell thought it was a good idea to make New Yorkers more cranky, right?
I
I
know,
mean, come
right?
on,
That's dangerous.
especially
Come on.
especially that close to New York City. Come on, but
Exactly.
apparently this was going on, and so they're trying to beam these frequencies out there, and then of course on the flip side they're trying to they'd adjust frequencies to bring about other different uh, kind of responses, to pacify people. Like first they would crank it to get people amped up and on edge, and then they would reduce the frequency, change it, and make it to where everybody was more mellow and relaxed and kicked back, and you know and apparently that experiment yielded mixed results. But then they started getting into the this uh, aspect of it where it combined elements of remote viewing, and uh, they
Hmm.
built this device in the underground portion of the base called the Montauk chair, and this is
Yep.
where it ties in to Stranger Things. Now, hopefully,
Oh, Jim, where'd you go? Okay, we lost Jim. I don't know what happened to him. Let me text him. So, while we're waiting for Jim to come back, I'll go ahead and go into the more into this article here. So, Montauk Base inspired the popular series Stranger Things, as you know. The series takes place in a fictional town called Hawkins in the 1980s and deals with supernatural events between the world and alternative reality. The center of events in the Hawkins National Laboratory, where experiments are conducted on human subjects, and a door is open to alternative universe. You back, Jim?
you see me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Oh, there you are.
Ah, there I am. Those sons of bitches, they sent that frequency and booted me off of here. The nerve of them, I
That's what it
tell you.
seems like. You're just getting into the nitty gritty of Montauk Project, and you got booted off.
See, I mean, just Seth, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you there. Yeah, Seth
Seth,
is
how
right.
are you?
I was tying too much of this conspiracy together, and
You were talking too much, Jim.
I'm talking too. Well, I always talk too much. Everybody
Of
knows that.
course.
But no. Okay, so the Montauk chair. Okay,
Hmm.
uh, the Montauk chair is what this contraption that they built in the underground portion of the base, where they began running psychic experiments with like remote viewing kind of type thing, and this is where it connects in directly to Stranger Things. Now, again, as I was saying before I got booted, Stranger Things. Hopefully, there's not too much of a spoiler here for season one, but the character, the central character in Stranger Things, is a girl by the name of 11, and she has these amazing powers. Her mother, this character 11, was a participant in the CIA's MK Ultra program, and again, we're still talking Stranger Things, not real life here. So I just want to verify that. And so the of course 11, what kind of kicks off the whole big thing with Stranger Things is that she has this ability to go in this uh, sensory deprivation tank, where it's like this saltwater tank where she's got this flotation vest on. Just she's completely cut off to supposedly enhance all of her senses, and she does these remote viewing things that her handlers there are trying to get her to remote view the Soviets, and so she's doing this. And during one of the remote viewing experiments that she's having, she finds herself in this space where there is this really weird looking humanoid like creature that has its back to her. And we end up learning that this creature is something that lives in like this mirror dimension of our own world, they call it the upside down, and this creature is called the Demogorgon, right? And so she kind of causes a rift, or the veil, if you will, between our world and this upside down dimension to bleed into each other. And this Demogorgon, because she touches it physically while she's in this remote viewing state, and that then allows the Demogorgon that she's still remote viewing to have that physical connection and kind of zero in on her and figure out a way to break into our dimension, and starts causing all kinds of havoc. And so the Montauk chair had something similar like that, where
Yep.
these psychically gifted people were brought in to the underground facility at Montauk, and were doing these same kind of things, where they were told to, okay, we're going to send you into deep space, and we want you to focus on this target and let us know what you see. And long story short, because it kind of really goes off the deep end, but what eventually ends up happening is this psychic chair, this Montauk chair, they're able to amplify the frequency in the subject's mind, and they're able to actually make these things materialize that are either dreams that this person in the chair is having, or that they are actually seeing in this remote viewing location. And so what happens is they call it the Montauk Beast. And forgive me, I don't remember what the recollection is, but it's
Well,
not too.
it's
Yeah,
in the article right here
is it
too.
okay? Yeah, go ahead and fill us in on that.
Okay, so another section. So this person's name was Duncan. Holding a person's hair in his hand, Duncan, one of the people with enhanced psychic powers mentioned in the book, focused on the person he wanted to see. To the owner of the hair he was holding in his hand, he began to see what he saw and hear what he heard. He could feel everything in his body. His body felt that. That way he could see what anyone else on the planet sees. And it goes on. Another section, Duncan read, we activated the emergency program when we thought the experiment had gone too far. One of the officers approached Duncan's ear, who was still sitting in the chair, and whispered, it's time. At that moment, a monster emerged from Duncan's subconscious. The instruments around us were actually able to image it. It was big, hairy, hungry, and dirty creature. It
That
was
sounds like
revealed.
me. Ugh.
It sounds like Bigfoot. That's what it sounds like. It was revealed at another point of the base, not where we were at that moment. He ate everything he came across. Many
Yep.
people on that base saw him, but everyone described it differently. It
Yep.
is claimed that the Montauk Project has more. It said that hundreds of people worked in the base's underground facilities. Even homeless people and children were kidnapped and
Right.
subjected to electromagnetic radiation.
Mhm.
It is claimed that matter and energy can be transferred. Even time travel and communications with aliens can be established. It is
Right.
claimed that monsters passing through time tunnels reach the base and cause dangerous consequences. All of these claims are used to explain why the base was suddenly closed in 1983. However, with whether these stories are true is debatable, and the boundaries between reality and speculation are blurred. Well, what do you think, Jim?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there,
Mm-hmm.
and but before I get there, I just want to acknowledge some things that I read here in the chat. Yes, Seth, I was clearly Montauk instead, not
Oh yeah, I saw
Skinwalker. I was
that.
Montauk. We're gonna, Seth. I
Instead
want
of
you to.
Skinwalker, you got
I
Montauk.
got Montauk. So Seth, I want you to copyright that term. Um, and then Barb brought up a good point that it's very Lovecraftian, and I want to say there's a movie that came out in 1986 or thereabouts called From Beyond that had kind of a similar kind of thing where in this movie From Beyond is and I don't know if any of you are familiar with an 80s horror movie called The Reanimator, but it's the same basically the same actors, same director, everything is that did this movie From Beyond. Highly recommend it. It's super weird. Um, Definitely not for children. Let me put it that way. But
Hmm.
in that movie, it was an instance where they were using something similar to the Montauk Project, really boosting radio frequencies, and it was somehow activating the pineal gland that you have in your head,
Hmm.
and that was allowing you to kind of peer into another dimension. But what eventually happened is the guy using it, his pineal gland got so enlarged and so active that he was able to make the things that were these funky, scary looking creatures that he saw in this other dimension materialize in the real world here, in our collective reality. So
Hmm.
yeah, good call, Barb. And I think that story is actually based on an H.P. Lovecraft novel. I can't immediately recall what it is, but good call out there, Barb. So yeah, what do I think? I think that again, there's an awful lot of what we're hearing in this legend that seems to parallel a lot of the things that we hear about today. Obviously, remote viewing is a very real thing, and the United States government did, in fact, have multiple remote viewing projects. One of the most prominent among them, Project Stargate, which Paul H. Smith, who is just a fantastic individual, he presented at Phenomicon this year and last year, and uh, one of the best presentations I've ever attended was given by Paul H. Smith, and he talked a lot about remote viewing and how it works and the varying degrees of success that they've had, and he tied in consciousness and all this other stuff, and really fascinating. So forgive my plug for Paul H. Smith. Check him out. He's awesome.
Yeah.
And so we know that there's great power in certain frequencies, and that frequencies obviously going clear back to ancient times with the ancient tribes and indigenous persons that were here in the United States and really all over the world. They all
Hmm.
have their myths and legends, and it all comes down to frequency and consciousness and vibration, right? Those are kind of like the three key elements that allow people to communicate or have some kind of an experience, out of body type experience type thing. There's an awful lot that's been written about it that is legitimately part of a lot of the cultures that are out there that are ancient cultures.
Yeah.
So, um, but this whole bit about how the remote viewing works, it's not too dissimilar from the way Paul H. Smith explained it to us at Phenomicon. So uh, that's definitely seems very credible about how this guy Duncan Cameron, I think was his name, was able to take something like that and then remote view and see where that person was, kind of type thing. Um, we've also obviously there's a lot of strange stuff that happens in places like Skinwalker Ranch, right?
Yeah.
But the big thing that makes this whole story of the Montauk Project uh, kind of difficult for me to accept at face value is the fact that there's no data to go off of. There's just pure speculation, and it's one hell of a fun story.
Yeah.
It's a scary story, but again, there's aspects about it that do make you have to say, okay, should we take a closer look at this? And I'll give you a great example here that I can share with you. It's a personal, how I personally connect in with this story.
Yep.
Now, my mother, again, I was born and raised in upstate New York, about 2.5, 3 hours away from New York City. And my mother was a prominent politician in my hometown. She was actually the mayor of my hometown for multiple terms. And so in New York State, and I'm not trying to get political here. I'm just trying to illustrate how New York's political system worked back in the day. Uh, Throughout most of the United States, you have two major parties. You've got the Republicans and the Democrats. New York State, when I was growing up, and when my mom was the mayor of my hometown, there was also a third party, a third conservative party that was just known as the Conservative Party of New York State. And my mother was a prominent member of that. So in the mid 1990s, New York, after Mario Cuomo, who was a prominent Democrat, had been the governor of New York for many, many years. In fact, the entire time I was in, the entire from I want to say from the time I was in like fifth grade, clear up until I was in college, Mario Cuomo, like for multiple terms, had been reelected for governor of New York. But in about 1994, 1995, he decided not to run for reelection, and New York State elected their first Republican governor in I don't know how long. And that man was named George Pataki. And George Pataki ended up being the governor of New York when 9/11 happened. So that's a name that a lot of people probably will recognize. So here I am in the late 1990s, and is when I first heard about this legend of the Montauk Project. And so I'm thinking, well, I heard this rumor that Camp Hero, after it had gotten decommissioned, sometime in the late 80s or early to mid 1990s, the base had been turned into a New York state park, right? So I'd heard the rumor, though, that in the act of Camp Hero, which is where the Montauk Project took place, that the only part of the property of the base that was signed over to New York State was everything above ground, and it specifically said that the underground facilities of Camp Hero would remain in the possession of the United States government.
Hmm.
And so I thought that was kind of odd because, of course, uh, anytime anybody's tried to petition the government to find out information about the legitimacy, did these kind of experiments happen at Montauk? Of course, the government's saying, "Yeah, right, no." So, but I found that rumor really interesting that they were saying that the everything above ground was signed over to New York State to be turned into this gorgeous state park that you can still visit today, and I highly recommend that you do. Even though I've never been there, but I'm told it's beautiful, and I'm sure it is because it's on Long Island. It's right there by the famous Montauk lighthouse. So really cool stuff.
Hmm.
But I digress. Okay, as I tend to do too often. But so I thought I would ask my mother because she's really was plugged in pretty well with the political system there in New York State, and she was a personal friend of Governor George Pataki. So I asked my mom if there was a way that she could find out was there any truth to the rumor that the underground facility of Camp Hero was not turned over to New York State, and if that, in fact, I at least wanted to start there. And so, sure enough, my mother, she looked at me kind of weird, and she's like, "Okay, but that seems kind of dumb. Why do you want to know that?" And so I told her the story, and she's like, "Yeah, okay? You need to stay out of the sun, kid." So, but she, to her credit, she did ask. She found out, and basically what my mother was told, as she told me, was yes, it's true. The underground portion of the base had been sealed, and it was no, it had not been turned over to New York State when the final sale happened to turn it into a state park, and that the underground facility was under. It wasn't confirmed that it was under government. I think what my mom said that she had been told was that it was under different ownership than the state of New York. And then she was also told, please don't ask about this again.
Yeah, of course.
So why would she be told that? And my mother was like, she was like, I have no idea why they would say that.
Makes you wonder, are they still doing experiments underneath that ground? Are they doing something like they're doing in Switzerland with that? What's
Right.
the name of that place?
Right. So, of course, folks, that is precisely how conspiracy theories start.
Mm-hmm.
Is when you tell somebody a little bit of the truth, or as much truth as you say that your NDA or whatever allows you to say, and then you just cut them off and say, and I can't tell you anything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, of course that was kind of left open ended, but I thought it was really interesting to get confirmation that the underground portion of the base was in fact never part of the sale to the state of New York, or at least based off of what the governor's representative told my mother.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting. Now,
CERN, that's the name of it. CERN.
CERN, right, the super collider, and so I don't know. It's Montauk is a really it's a genuinely creepy story. It really
Mm-hmm.
is, especially when you see how much of Stranger Things was influenced directly by the Montauk Project.
Yep.
Um, if I'm being perfectly honest and transparent, I don't believe 95% of it, just because it doesn't add up. Now, is it absolutely impossible that it happened? No. And what I did find out also in subsequent years is that there were experiments that were being done on the base that allegedly involved LSD and other psychedelics to see what kind of reaction um, this would have. And of course, this was all being done, presumably, under the guise of the United States government, the military, because it was being done and conducted at a time when the camp was still a commissioned active military base.
Mm-hmm.
And if I understand correctly, and I may have this wrong, folks, so don't hold me to this, but I believe that legendary psychedelic proponent Timothy Leary, who was a big counterculture figure back in the 1960s and 70s, that he was one of the people that was participating in some of these LSD, psilocybin, psychedelic mushrooms, whatever the heck it was that they were doing. That he apparently was one of the people. Him and maybe Terrence McKenna, I think, was another personality that I heard allegedly were on the base participating in some of these psychedelic experiments from time to time. So um, I tend to lean toward that probably being true, just because the source that I heard it from was somebody that is like me, that's naturally a skeptic, and they want to see some kind of bankable data to go off of. And
Mm-hmm.
for him to tell me, I'm going to place a little more weight to it than if I just read some random article on the internet. So I do think that there were absolutely experiments that were conducted there. Um, I would love, if I get a chance to talk with Paul Smith again, I would love to ask him if maybe Camp Hero was ever part of Project Stargate, or I think there was another project that he did. Well, maybe Paul Smith wasn't involved in it, but I remember reading about a project called Project Sunstreaker or something like that.
What was that
So
project?
I believe that was also another remote viewing slash ESP based kind of program that the CIA was
Mm-hmm.
running, and of course MK Ultra, right? MK Ultra, we know for a fact that that was real, and that
Yep.
they were using various methods to use mind control, ESP. There was I think there was some remote viewing that was involved in
Mm-hmm.
components of MK Ultra. So it's easy to see how there's these official top secret programs that the government has, like MK Ultra and Project Stargate, that kind of, as one project ends, there's another one that begins that is also, and as MK Ultra became declassified, Project Stargate was already underway. And then when Project Stargate ended and became declassified, you can tell that there was already another project that came in to pick up where the predecessor had left off. So to that end, and because we have a verifiable history of the CIA conducting these morally questionable, ethically questionable experiments, um, I don't put it at all out of the realm of possibility that there was truly some really trippy stuff going on that probably could have involved psychic experiments of some kind. But do
Yeah.
I believe they would have yielded the results that where a beast or a monster of some kind materialized and did all this stuff? Uh, that's a little harder sell for me. That's kind of a bridge too far. But again, I'm still not even though I say I don't necessarily believe it, I'm not going to rule it out entirely. I'm never going to say anything is 100%, impossible because
Mm-hmm.
ever since 2017, like I've said on my podcast, I was so never a UFO guy, and
Yeah.
yet here I am. And now that I've gone down this rabbit hole of Skinwalker Ranch and Expedition Bigfoot and all these great mysteries that are now appearing to be a lot of these rumors and legends and myths seem to be true. There's a lot of corroborating data that indicates that a lot of the stuff that goes on at Skinwalker Ranch that was alleged to happen years ago. Look at the carcass of what appears to be a dire wolf that was discovered on Skinwalker Ranch. DNA tests confirm uh, that it's very likely, if nothing else, an unknown descendant of a dire wolf. Right. So that ties into a legend that so many people, myself included, prior to its discovery, had had filed away as being probably not likely, right? But now it's
Mm-hmm.
like, holy cow! And then look at the other things that we've found on Skinwalker Ranch that seem to be that. And there's so many other things that are in our world that seem right off the pages of science fiction and comic books, but yet there they are, right? And that's what happens when somebody goes from crossing that threshold from being a believer or a casual believer and having faith that something might be true to actually experiencing something and becoming an experiencer to where you can no longer deny the truthfulness of something because you experienced it.
Yeah.
And I myself, I've never experienced anything like what the Montauk Project involves, but these elements of time travel. We're now hearing that there's a very good likelihood, there's at least a good hypothesis can be made that some of what we see with the UAP phenomena could in fact involve time travel of some kind. Um, and Hal Puthoff kind of goes into that a little bit with the amazing Age of Disclosure video documentary film that just came out a couple of days ago. Uh, had to get a plug in for that, but yeah, there's so much stuff about Montauk that is just absolutely. I read through. It's a really short book. I mean, you can read the book in like 3 hours. So I don't even think it has 100 pages in
That's
it.
another book reading episode for me.
There you
I
go.
do that.
And to be fair, the authors of the book, Preston Nichols and this Peter Moon guy, they actually say to the reader at the about halfway through the book, you know, it's up to the reader to decide if we're telling the truth or if this is just science fiction, and it's kind of tongue in cheek, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think. I think if at best it's a combination of both. I think there may be some actual truth to some of the things that are in the book Experiments of Time,
Yeah.
but I also think that the vast majority of it is just the product of a creative creative mind trying to make a book that's a fascinating read for people that like reading about those kinds of things. But that's just me.
Supposedly he had worked there, so then he wrote the book to kind of declassify, but probably wrote it under fiction to try
Yeah,
to stay out of trouble. Seth brought up a point, a question: could some of these entities be egregores, or human consciousness created things? That's a good point. It reminds me of what Slender Man. How did that did that appear?
yeah, yeah, and that's a very
Pasta
very
always
good point.
created. He
Yeah,
always created all these creatures on the creepy pasta website that I've heard about. Like,
right.
I just recently heard that that girl that was 12 years old who stabbed
She
another.
escaped.
Yeah, she escaped. She's recaptured now.
Yeah, yeah, they,
I
they
just
caught
saw
her.
that this morning, and like, just to please Slender Man, and other people are actually seeing this type of being as well, all from made a made up place that people are coming in and making like different creatures and stuff like that.
Right.
I found that
And
interesting. Like, can that happen? Like Seth brought up a good point. Like, right there, that reminded me of the Slender Man. What Seth
yeah,
brought up.
Seth always brings up good points. He's he's
Yeah,
uh,
he
he- he's
does.
such a cool guy and an absolute kick ass musician and songwriter, might I add. So hats off to you, Seth. Um, so I guess what I would say back to Seth and to you regarding that is, what about the possibility of it being manifestation in action, right?
Conjuring up, maybe.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's this great concept of manifestation, and where if you desire something so greatly and you do everything that you can, the power of positive thinking, some people call it, and you set this goal and you try to do everything that you can that's in your power
Mm-hmm.
to make this happen. And it's not anywhere as near on the level of the Montauk project, not yet. But I'll give you a great example. Okay, uh, as many of you may know, I'm in this great uh, music project with Jay Stratton and Dr. Travis Taylor, Micah Hanks, John Nyberger, and Caleb Hanks, and we call it Hitchhiker. And we do covers of classic rock, and we also have several originals that the band has begun writing as well. So, how I got to be a part of that band, there's a little bit of manifestation in that John Nyberger and I have talked about, and I wish John was here in the chat to talk about this with me. But I remember even going back before Hitchhiker happened, when
Mm-hmm.
Roger and I joined the Insiders, the Skinwalker Ranch Insiders, which I love so much being a Skinwalker Ranch insider. So big shout out to any of my fellow insiders that
Speaking
are there
of
in the
which,
chat.
they're having a Q&A tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern. So be
Oh,
for any insiders. So at 9 o'clock Eastern, they're having a Q&A. The team. And anyways, sorry.
right on. So when Roger and I, my podcasting partner Roger Stokes and I, when we joined the Insiders, I remember we said, how cool would it be if we ever had an opportunity to meet the guys from Skinwalker Ranch? Because Phenomicon hadn't happened yet. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's like, wow, it'd be so cool if we got to meet the guys at Skinwalker Ranch, and then Phenomicon happens, and we have the opportunity to meet the guys from Skinwalker Ranch at the first Phenomicon.
Yeah.
And then the second Phenomicon happens, and before that happens, Roger and I are like, wouldn't it be awesome if we ever got to know these guys and got to be friends with them? And how cool would it be just to be able to pick their brains and just to listen to some of their stories? And the very next year at Phenomicon, Roger and I, some would say by pure chance, end up striking up a conversation with Caleb Bench.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
the product of that conversation was we Caleb shared his kind of like his life story with us, and found out that my story very closely paralleled his regarding both our religious and spiritual faith, and the just a lot of things that Caleb experienced in his life versus what I experienced as well. And so here we are, still to this day, Caleb Bench and Roger. He's a very dear friend of me and Roger. And then that kind of opened up the possibility to where Roger and I, here we are in 2025. I'm now friends with multiple people that are on the Skinwalker Ranch team, including Travis Taylor. And before the third year of Phenomicon began, I remember finding out that Jay Stratton was going to be coming to Phenomicon,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember saying to Roger, "Oh my gosh, how cool would it be just to be able to shake Jay Stratton's hand?" And so the opportunity presented itself. We got to meet Jay Stratton, got to meet Michelle Stratton, which was equally as awesome. And so, long story short, these goals, these things that Roger and I wanted to make happen, we were able to make them happen. And I'm still not clear how exactly they happened, other than to say a lot of it was sheer willpower, maybe being in the right place at the right time, and a pretty damn good dose of good old fashioned luck.
Yeah,
Because
blessing probably.
here I am in 2025, and I'm in a band with Jay Stratton and with
How
Travis
cool is
Taylor.
that?
Right. And we just had a podcast episode on the Soul of the Unexplained 2 weeks ago where we had all of Hitchhiker together, which is a damn near impossibility with everybody's schedule. But we had Jay Stratton and Travis Taylor and all the band just talking about music, talking about what inspires us musically. And for those that don't know, my day job, as it were, is I'm a professional music producer, audio engineer. So my whole world revolves around the creation, songwriting, song production, recording, performance, everything. And
That's cool.
so having that opportunity to be involved in a creative music project and a performance project like Hitchhiker with these guys, uh, I'm always asking. John Nyberger and I are always saying to each other, "How did we end up here? How did we get so lucky?" And one day, John just said, Jim, it may be manifestation. We wanted so badly to be able to form a friendship and find out, more about what these guys experience when they're doing these investigations, and they've we've been blessed with this opportunity of getting to know each of them personally, and I can vouch for just what amazing human beings they are. To say nothing of what they're famous for. Take all that away. Take away the docu series. All the UAP stuff. The great documentary. These guys are just awesome guys. They're good people. They're decent human beings, men of integrity, deepest integrity, and they've become very dear friends. And I think a lot of that happened because I had Roger and I just had this desire to want to be, get to know these guys, and never in our wildest dreams did we expect we would find ourselves where we are. And
Yeah.
it's, and I'm not trying to say this to brag or anything like that. It's
Oh,
truly humbling that we've found ourselves there. And I think when I began learning about this principle of manifestation, it kind of ties into the Montauk project with what they were making manifest out of their imaginations and a lot of it and stuff, and what I've seen happen in my own life. I mean, I can even go back and heck, I think manifestation helped me, find my wife. My beautiful wife Michelle, who I just celebrated 30 years of marriage to. Um,
congratulations.
Thank you. And she was, it was one of those instances where I fell in love with her at first sight, and I saw her across the college campus, and I'm like, oh man, that's a woman who is so far out of my league. But you know what? I'm gonna take a shot anyway. And here I am, 30 some odd years later, and we have three beautiful children. We built a fantastic life, and I
Hmm.
absolutely believe that it was, there was at least a little bit of that principle of manifestation that made that happen. And I guess you can use it would make sense if manifestation really is a thing, then it would make sense you could use it for good or for bad, right? So I guess that maybe that factors into it as well. Your intent, right? Your intent with manifestation. Um, and so I guess that would be the question: is that if those things did in fact happen, and for me that's a pretty big if those things happened in the underground facilities of Camp Hero for the Montauk project, then what was the intent? Really, honestly, what was the intent of everything? Were they trying to develop a new spy technology, espionage craft to use against the Soviets, or was this for something more nefarious? And then another point of the Montauk project we haven't really touched upon that you mentioned
Hmm.
was the this allegation that they were kidnapping homeless people, and specifically like runaway kids, runaway
Runaway
teenagers, right?
children.
Well,
There was a lot
again,
of missing children around that time, I heard.
exactly, and there was. I remember growing up in in the 1970s, and one of the TV stations, well, several of the TV stations that we got in my hometown were from the New York metropolitan area. Good old Channel 11 and Channel 9 and Channel 5.
Hmm.
The great, and you're back east. I think you might even get Channel 11 or some of those for all I know.
Yeah,
But
Channel
uh,
3 or something like that.
good old WPIX Channel 11, right?
Hmm.
And so I always remember growing up in the 70s and 80s, seeing the local news reports coming out of Channel 11, which of course is based out of Manhattan, and the other two New York Metro radios TV stations were always, it seemed, very frequently having these stories about children that had been abducted or that just disappeared on their way to school, and it was it was a genuinely scary thing. There seemed to be an awful lot of children that were disappearing in the New York metropolitan area, and of course, Montauk is a little ways outside of that, but it's still Montauk is on the end of Long Island,
Yeah.
not too far away. So, um, but what it comes down to though is again, is there any evidence or proof to substantiate the claim that they were also snatching kids? Now, that's absolutely terrifying, and it also tends to tie in with some of the modern day, urban legends that are out there, like Pizzagate, right? Again, not to get political, but there's a lot of allegations of that stuff going on, and how kids, like Jeffrey Epstein, and
Oh
his fascination with
trafficking.
young ladies and human trafficking. Yeah, the this rumor of they call them the Illuminati, but like they one of the reasons why they kidnap these young kids is for a substance called adenochrome or adrenochrome chrome or something
Yep.
like that.
Hmm.
That apparently is like this fountain of youth thing, like the blood, this substance that's extracted from the blood or the hormones of children.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Horror movie kind of
As
type stuff.
well.
I have no idea of the authenticity of those claims, folks. So just in the but just simply trying to draw a parallel comparison here of there still is these stories that for the most part are like the Montauk Project, unsubstantiated, of children being snatched off the street for these nefarious purposes. And certainly the Montauk Project would have been for nefarious purposes. I think we can probably agree on that. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, what a story, what a mind job, right?
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of craziness. It gets better too. So to finalize this in 2008, this washed out, and I found out a few days ago that this was on the Montauk beach. This body was found, and supposedly the people that saw it said that it had a beak, and the paws on it didn't look normal at all. So I don't know what to think about this. Like, is it a dog? Is it something that was experimented on and got washed up? Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah, it's a creepy looking thing, and I remember the news story when that because it hit a lot of the mainstream news sites. That's how I learned about it. And at first look, it looks really really scary, right? Something right out of like it would perfectly fit the narrative of the Montauk Project, right? And but a couple of things to take into consideration with this particular creature here is Montauk is close to a place that's in that New York area, a place called Plum Island, and I believe they did animal testing. There's a lot of animal testing,
Yep.
perhaps illegal and otherwise, that went on. Plum Island is well known for that. And there's all kinds of these really weird, creepy. There's like these mental hospitals and sanitariums that are abandoned, and there's literally the stuff of Stephen King type novel. But what I have to wonder when I see this is if you were ever to see what a black bear or a grizzly bear or even a raccoon looks like when it doesn't have its fur on, doesn't look at all like a bear or a raccoon. And
Hmm.
so I guess the question I have is that it looks like the whatever this creature is, whether dog maybe perhaps, because I think I see some canine fangs and things there. So it certainly looks otherworldly, but it could also have a very prosaic, very mundane explanation. If it was something that washed up on the beach, um, how long was it, submerged in the water? What
Hmm.
kind of, what kind of sea and marine creatures may have fed off it to, strip it of its fur? But certainly, that's boy, if that's not straight out of a nightmare, I don't know what is.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was crazy. I mean, some people were speculating it might have been a pit bull that washed up on the shore, or raccoon. Who knows
Certainly,
what it been? I mean, the first time I saw the picture, it looked like it had a beak on it, but who knows? Is it like a
right?
hybrid that they created?
Yeah, yeah,
Who
and
knows?
and I don't I don't recall hearing if there was ever any kind of DNA testing done on it. Did you?
No, I've not heard about it. I mean, I've heard about it years ago. I think it was on the History Channel or some other. I think it was called on Monster Quest when the story first came out, and I don't remember them
Right,
showing any type of DNA, or it's just a photo that they was
right,
released, and that's all I know. So I'm not sure.
yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely one of those things that um, it's kind of how can you not look at that and see where it washed up, and if you're
Mm-hmm.
aware of the Montauk project, how can that not enter your mind of is there really still something going on underground?
Never know. This was
You know,
2008. That happened. Like, I was surprised that was on Montauk Beach. I thought it was somewhere else.
yeah.
When I saw the article, I'm like, wow, that
In
okay.
fact, I think I recall one of the news sites that I remember reading when that article broke was that people were thinking that it might be an actual chupacabra, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So I thought that was kind of the legend of the goat sucker, the chupacabra. Um, so yeah, I mean, but and I guess this is one question I'll leave you with, and maybe some of the folks in the chat, if they, if they don't already think that I'm certifiably crazy, then this will certainly do it. But we have all these legends and myths throughout human history of creatures like leprechauns, fairies, right? Um, little people, hobbits, and of course legends of werewolves, right? And then we have these cryptids like Nessie, the Loch Ness monster, and of course,
The Reach.
Sas, yeah, Sasquatch, right? Chupacabra. So
Hmm.
I guess my question is there any possibility that some of these creatures and beings of ancient lore might be based in some aspect of reality, right? Because who's to say that maybe these things didn't really exist at one time, and for whatever reason, because of people's collective consciousness changing, their perception of reality changing, and then these things were relegated back to whatever dimension they originally came from.
Yeah.
Um, so these are all compelling theories that I've heard throughout the years that at one time I would have completely dismissed and said, yeah, okay, there's no such thing. Much as I would like to, there's no such thing as leprechauns. There's no such thing as, and again,
I mean, if
I have
Bigfoot exists, what else is out there?
right, exactly, and I'm certain that there's something similar to Sasquatch, if not what the Indians, Native Americans call Sasquatch actually exists. I mean, there's so much corroborating evidence that indicates that there is something that resembles what the reports of Bigfoot are, right? And it's not, and it appears to not just be confined to one region of the world, right? Because we have obviously there's stories of the Yeti over in Asia and the skunk ape down in the southern parts of the United States. Um, the
There's reports in India as well of some type of monkey man that's attacked people.
right,
That's in India. So
and there's these rumors of a large, gigantic, hairy bipedal hominid that attacks Denver Bronco fans in the state of Utah that likes to wear Kraftwerk hats and uh, you know trust me, if you you don't ever want to see Jim without a shirt, or else you'll be convinced Bigfoot exists. So, and I blame that on my Viking heritage. But no, in all seriousness, I whereas prior to going down this greater rabbit hole of the unexplained, prior to that, I absolutely dismissed any of this stuff as just being nonsense and just fairy tales.
Yeah,
But what if, who's to say? Maybe there was a time when dragons really did exist. You know,
yeah.
there's some people that refuse to believe that the dinosaurs existed, and yet we have fossil evidence of that.
Oh yeah.
So I've one thing I've learned, especially in the last couple of years, is never completely shut the door or close the book on even some of the more extraordinary and outlandish beliefs and legends that are out there. And part of what did that for me was I've never. I think I may have seen a UAP this last year at Phenomicon at the
Yeah, you
voice
told me that. Yeah.
at the Voice of the Believers dinner. Still not 100% sure, but prior to that, I certainly never saw a UFO or a UAP. I've never seen Bigfoot, um, but I have had other experiences. As a lot of people know, I had an experience with a shadow being,
Mhm.
multiple experiences actually. So, because of what that did to my belief system, I now have to say, okay, I'm never going to completely discount something just out of hand because it seems outrageous and ridiculous to me. Obviously, I'm still going to want to see data and corroborating proof if there ever is any, because I am still very much a skeptic at heart. I
Yeah.
believe in following the scientific method, and for that reason, I don't place an awful lot of faith in most of the Montauk Project story. But again, there's little things from it that are very possible, and I think may in fact have happened.
Yeah.
As evidenced by the science experiments that we've seen that came from what is alleged to have happened in the Philadelphia experiment. With the invisibility and things like that. So those things are happening today. Those kind of technologies are being developed today, and we're seeing a lot of these things that were previously the realm of fringe, extreme fringe. Now we have to look at them in a perhaps with a different lens, and I think that's both exciting and a little bit perhaps unsettling. But that's just me. What do I know? I know nothing. Don't listen to me, folks.
Well, look what happened with President Bill Clinton. He came on and said, like, he apologized, like, okay, yeah, this happened. The MK Ultra happened. We apologize for it. It's not happening anymore. I don't really believe that's not happening anymore. I think it's probably continuing. Lots of other stuff is probably continuing. That's my take on it. Keep
Yeah,
an open mind. That's my
yeah.
theory.
Got to keep an open mind. I really think we're living in a really extraordinary time, and how lucky
Yep.
are we that we get to see this UAP phenomena open up before our very eyes. And again, I go back to this absolutely outstanding Age of Disclosure documentary that came out just a few days ago. I think it's going to set the new paradigm, and it's going to open up a whole new phase of disclosure. And one thing that we're learning about the UAP phenomena is that
Yeah.
it is inextricably linked with some of the other aspects of the paranormal, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
how many times do we hear about Bigfoot sightings where there's also some kind of UAP activity happening in the
Yeah.
same immediate vicinity, right? And there's all kinds of documentation about that. And I'm a person that believes that I believe in things like life after death. I believe that consciousness, and this is what I'll shut up on after this. And I say this in all of my podcasts whenever I get the chance. I think consciousness, we don't really have a full understanding of what consciousness is, but whatever consciousness is, I'm convinced, or at least I feel very, very strongly, that consciousness plays a big role in figuring all of this out, all of these mysteries. Because again, I believe that consciousness, whether you want to call it, again, your consciousness, your spirit, your soul, your
Mm-hmm.
life force, your energy, I believe that continues to live on after you experience physical death. I think after you die, that part of you, the part of you that
The
really
soul.
is you, lives
Hmm.
on, and it continues to learn and progress, and it's just it exists in a completely different plane or dimension after we die. And that's why I think these stories of out of body experiences and remote viewing are very true, because they're tied into consciousness. And I think once we figure out what consciousness really is and how to really tap into it, I think that's when things are going to make a quantum leap forward for humanity. And I think we're going to find out at some point that consciousness, for want of a better term, is the most predominant life form in the universe. Because what we're learning now is that, we are clearly not alone in the universe, if not even alone on this planet. And again, such an exciting time, especially seeing what's happening with the telepathy tapes, right? I highly recommend people check out the telepathy tapes. There's some really fascinating stuff going on there, and they're using science to back up a lot of the claims. And it's just really an exciting time to be alive, to watch all of this stuff come out and all of this stuff happen. I'm just so grateful to be a part of it, and grateful to you for inviting me on, and I'm sure you're never going to do it again because I talk way too much.
No, you're awesome. Thank you. I do appreciate your time. Speaking of which,
Thank you.
I know some of you know we've had some strange possible Bigfoot activity around our property. It was a few years back. I'm not sure when. My dad had shared that he saw a strange light across the street above the trees. A strange blue light. Whether it was a UFO, I'm not sure. So
Yeah,
I wanted to add to your conversation about Bigfoot and UFOs together. Like that's what he saw, and that was around the time we've had Bigfoot activity. So is it correlated? I don't know. It's
yeah,
kind of strange, though.
yeah. I would advise everybody. Not that I'm in a position or can speak from a place of authority to advise people on such things, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's essential to move all of this into a more of a mainstream and destigmatized realm. It behooves all of us to have that curious mind, always maintain that desire to learn. And we've got to be careful not to throw the baby out with the bathwater and being skeptical. I still consider myself very skeptical, but also open-minded. Again, I'm not going to automatically believe that some of these legends are true just because they make for great conversation and for great campfire stories and things like that. I want to see corroborating evidence. I want to see some kind of a data using and applying the scientific method that helps you formulate a hypothesis that you can then verify or falsify. And the exciting thing is that where we see that being applied at places like Skinwalker Ranch and Expedition Bigfoot, we are starting to see some truly extraordinary results that seem to verify a lot of the ancient legends and myths and traditions that have been passed down for centuries. So I don't think we should ever close our minds to things being possible, even some of the more outlandish and ridiculous stuff. I mean, I still have a hard time coming to terms and figuring out whether or not I believe in UAP and UFO abductions, right?
Yeah.
That's a hard one for me personally to wrap my head around. But yet, I've met Travis Walton and I've talked to him face to face, and I'm here to tell you folks, if you've never met Travis Walton, hearing him tell you his story while he's right there in front of you, you can see in his eyes. He believes 100% everything that he says happened to him truly did happen.
Yeah.
And he's passed every lie detector test. All of his workmates that were with him when the incident happened, some of whom do not like him at all, still support the story that Travis tells. So that's an abduction case that I think is very legitimate and may have very well happened. Um,
Yeah.
the more I'm learning about Whitley Strieber, and I had a quick opportunity to get to say hello to him at Phenomicon this last year. Uh, his case is very compelling. Betty and Barney Hill, their case
Yeah,
is extremely compelling.
they were one of the
But
first ones, I think, that were
right,
documented.
absolutely. So again, even though I'm a hard sell overall on like the UAP abduction phenomena, there's still several UAP abduction cases that I believe are very credible and very believable. So again, it's important to maintain that open mind. I'm not saying at all that it's not possible. I'm not shutting the door completely on it. And that's why I don't shut the door completely on the Montauk project, even though I
Mhm.
readily admit I think 90% or greater of it is complete bunk. But at the same time, you never know. And to that end, I will remain curious. I
Yeah.
will continue to pay attention anytime there's new news that comes out. But I'd rather focus my attention on stuff that's a little more easy to wrap my head around, like the UAP phenomena, like Skinwalker Ranch, Expedition Bigfoot, um, you know, different things like that. So that's kind of how I am, what my approach is.
Well, thank you, Jim, for your time and for coming on. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate your time and for this interesting discussion. I appreciate the time. And Stranger Things is coming up a couple more days from today, Wednesday. I'm not sure when. Not Wednesday night at Netflix, just
So
day before Thanksgiving.
Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, for those that live in the Mountain Time Zone, it becomes available at 6 p.m. on Wednesday. Pacific Time Zone, 5 p.m. So if you're in the Eastern states, that would be 8, 8 p.m. on Wednesday.
Probably.
And I'm just saying it right now, Miriam. I am 100% Team Steve when it comes to Stranger Things. And if they kill off Steve, I'm going to be one unhappy New Yorker. I'm going to give him the ugly side of Brooklyn.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Steve survives, and hopefully everyone else that I like survives, unless there's going to be a shocker. I mean, the Duffer Brothers did say that there's going to be a horrible death that
Yep.
fans are not prepared for, so I guess we'll see when it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I still love the show. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Miriam, thanks so much for having me on. I sure appreciate it. And one more
Thank you.
big shout out to all these awesome people over here in the live chat, especially Seth, Linda, Barb, and all the and Kat and all the great folks that are there. You guys are awesome. I
Yeah.
know many of you from the Skinwalker Ranch Insider and Jeff Freeman's podcast, and yeah, you guys are
Thank you,
awesome.
everybody, for
Cheers.
joining us. Like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Miriam IRI /mysteries and fun. If you like my Facebook, check out my Bigfoot Diaries, and also check out the Bryant Dragon Fan Club.
Mhm.
That if you're fans of Skinwalker Ranch, have a good night, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.